We are here for a hearing in the Council's Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation on docket number 0175, order for a hearing regarding equitable access to public transportation with a cashless fare collection system.
We want to thank the MBTA, and of course we want to thank riders and advocates for being a part of this very important conversation, a timely one while we are considering major changes to our public transit system.
We have the Director of Fare Policy and Analytics, Laurel Paget-Seekins, and the Chief Technology Officer, David Block-Schachter. I also want to welcome and thank the General Manager, Luis Ramirez, for joining us, who's back there for now, but if it gets too tough or if we have other questions, we will certainly ask you to join the panel as well.
Just thank you for having us at this public forum. We're really excited about this opportunity to kick off this stage of our public outreach for this project in Boston, especially given its importance in the MBTA system.
So again, I'm so glad to be here. My name is Laurel Paget-Seekins, and I am the Director of Fare Policy and Analytics for the MBTA. And I sort of joined the team to really sort of lead the policy conversations with both our internal and external stakeholders around some key decisions that we need to make in order to get the benefits of the project that David just mentioned. And the fourth area is one which I think is what everyone immediately thinks about, is what are the fares going to be, how they're going to be structured. So this includes not just fare products, but transfer rules and also sort of bigger structural changes to our fares that are now potentially possible, like time of day pricing or changes to different ways that we do the distance-based pricing that we currently do on commuter rail or distance-based pricing on other modes.
And then my last question, I thank the chair and the co-sponsor for her indulgence here. My last question for this round is, again, thinking about youth and just transit-dependent communities. Have you considered piloting, lower fare? Is this something that you're open to, just again, given the disproportionate burden that is anticipated?
Yeah, that we've started to hear input on that. It's something that our board has discussed. I assume you're meaning like a means-tested sort of low-income fare. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, that is something that has been discussed, and so something that we will continue to look into as part of the sort of general conversation around fare policy. That is sort of one of the policy areas that we'll be discussing.
My name is Leilani Maraskowski. I'm a Boston resident that is actually truly transit dependent, meaning for me, to get from point A to point B, I need the T. There's no other option, really. There are people that simply cannot afford to load money in advance onto their card, but rather find just enough cash in the moment to ride public transit when they need it. For those people, having the option to pay in cash at all stations, on all buses, at all bus stops is crucial to their livelihood. With this development of a new Charlie card, we believe it is critical to develop a low-income pass. Green Roots has been instrumental in creating the Youth Pass, which allows for a 50% discount or $30 per month pass for low-income youth, mostly between the ages of 12 and 25. It is important to note that almost 120 Chelsea youth now have access to affordable transit because of this program, and also because of our proximity to East Boston, we have started accepting East Boston youth into our program in Chelsea. These are youth who are going to college, have jobs, and have many other responsibilities, but do not have the financial means to spend a lot of money on a necessity like transportation. And many of our participants in the Youth Pass program also inquire about fare reduction for their elders and their community members who unfortunately are too old to qualify for the program. And yet, they still desperately need fare reduction. So when we think about improving accessibility and customer service, we really need to be thinking about these people, people who are truly transit dependent, who have no other option but to use the MBTA for survival, for their jobs, for their health obligations, and a low-income fare is an absolute necessity for those folks. Thank you.
Thanks for this opportunity. My name is Julia Wallers. I'm the Boston Program Manager for the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, that's ITDP. It's also so important to consider the structure of the fares because the fare structure will, in a large manner, define the income and the equity of the system. In a city like Boston, where low-income groups take some of the longest trips on transit, flat fares can be most equitable. I don't know if the T is considering distance-based fares, but we know from cities around the country and the world who have implemented this type of fare structure where you pay more the further you're going, that you end up having the poor at the fringes being the ones who end up paying the highest transportation costs. So in order to achieve greater social equity, a flat fare helps to give such low-income groups access to the services and opportunities in the city center and promotes a greater sense of social equity within the public transport system. On a related note, going through the process of adopting AFC 2.0 provides an opportunity to reassess fares at large. Providing fare discounts to special groups is a relatively common practice in public transport systems around the world, and I hope that the T will consider implementing income-based discounts. Other U.S. cities that face staggering income inequality, like in Boston, are turning to low-income fare subsidies as a way to maintain access to affordable transportation. As most of us know, this month, New York City committed to their Fair Fares, a low-income fare subsidy program for city residents, and Minneapolis and Seattle both offer income-based transit passes.
I'm Stacey Thompson, the Executive Director of Livable Streets Alliance, and I would say that my overarching message today is that we need policy before technology. And I think it's important for all of us to be thinking about the context within which we are trying to implement this system. Today, 23% of Bostonians, approximately 150,000 people, live below the federal poverty line. According to MAPC's State of Equity report, Black bus riders spend 64 more hours per year on buses relative to their white counterparts. We need to create policies that are explicitly designed to address these equity gaps, especially as the MBTA continues to increase fares. In 2019, the T will very likely vote to increase our fares, and that would be the second increase in 3 years. AFC 2.0 will not operate in isolation. It is coming at a time when our city and our region are grappling with inequity, and we have an obligation to ensure that the implementation does not compound those inequities. So what we would recommend is focusing on 3 key areas: fare policy, enforcement, and short-term mitigation efforts. Many low-income riders pay ride by ride, and they have no subsidy from their employers. I pay up front once a month, and my employer covers the cost of my pass. So what this means is that the folks who are paying ride by ride often pay in cash, and they come up short. They are penalized when they're, let's say, transferring from the Fairmount line to a bus. There is no cap on what they pay, so at the end of the month, I've paid a flat rate, and they may have paid more than me. These issues are largely not a matter of technology. They are a matter of policy. And we urge the T to address the issues of inequitable fare policy before rolling out AFC 2.0, because it will enhance the success of that great investment. We also need to know who currently is not able to pay full fares on the MBTA service, especially on our bus system, which services the largest portion of low-income riders. Here are a few solutions we'd recommend in this category: instituting a low-income fare policy, like our neighbors in New York. Just for context, they align that with SNAP benefits, and that again hits that $25,000 threshold. I would also just say that the folks in Seattle, which Julia mentioned, right now 25,000 residents are part of that income-based program. So we know that these programs are very popular and successful. I will say, however, that there are a couple of things that we would recommend that are based on the new technology. One is to create a fare capping policy, which we would be able to do with the new system, and allowing for free transfers between commuter rails, trains, bus lines, which I know is also on the docket and something that I think we should really focus on and make sure happens.
My name is Lee Matsueda. I'm offering testimony on behalf of the T-Riders Union, which is a program at Alternatives for Community Environment. We're based in Dudley Square, Roxbury, and as a multi-issue environmental justice organization, one of the key components of our work has been on public transportation, particularly with bus riders in Roxbury, Dorchester, people who are transit dependent. Speaking to the policy piece specifically, I think we definitely support the low-income fare, any future study and or pilot of that program, and of course the fare cap as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Alensa Michelle, and I'm the coordinator of the Fairmount Indigo Network. It is a umbrella organization of 32 organizations and coalitions that serve the Fairmount Line neighborhoods. These are Mattapan, Hyde Park, Roxbury, and Dorchester. I was also heavily involved in the Youth Pass campaign years ago, and would like to echo a lot of the sentiments of my colleagues here, and would like to focus on 6 points in particular. I'm also joined here with Mela Miles, who is the chair of the Fairmount Indigo Transit Coalition, which specifically focuses on the Fairmount Transit line. Good afternoon. My name is Alensa Michelle, and I'm the coordinator of the Fairmount Indigo Network. It is a umbrella organization of 32 organizations and coalitions that serve the Fairmount Line neighborhoods. These are Mattapan, Hyde Park, Roxbury, and Dorchester. I was also heavily involved in the Youth Pass campaign years ago, and would like to echo a lot of the sentiments of my colleagues here, and would like to focus on 6 points in particular. I'm also joined here with Mela Miles, who is the chair of the Fairmount Indigo Transit Coalition, which specifically focuses on the Fairmount Transit line. AFC 2.0 absolutely requires to involve a robust and effective community engagement strategy if it's to be successful. We must deploy both quantitative and qualitative data measures to inform the process that reaches and targets the Boston area's most marginalized groups, which include youth, seniors, persons with disabilities, persons where English is not their first language, and those who are at or below the federal poverty line. We also encourage the addition of creative and equitable methods to be employed, and the appropriate amount of resources distributed to ensure that that process really targets and really engages the right audience that it needs. Lastly, the integration of low-income fare systems like a low-income fare structure and youth passes remain a question. It is imperative that we take into account all the structural pressures that impact quality of life and impact transit, such as housing, wealth inequality, environmental justice, and other lack of economic opportunity in neighborhoods that have historically been underserved and underinvested in. We recognize that these are complicated issues, but with equity and fairness, it's never said to be an easy task.
One of the things that would like to recommend as a mitigation to address this is to eliminate the surcharge for paying cash on board immediately. When AFC 1.0 was implemented, they implemented a penalty for utilizing cash on board, and then, of course, our low-income and bus-dependent communities are the prime people who are paying cash on board. And also, one of my recommendations, so asking for this as a mitigation to implement transfers from any Zone 1A connected station.
I am the coordinator of the Alston Brighton Health Collaborative. I also work for Union Capital Boston, UCB, which I know some of you know well, and I thank you for that.
Thank all the writers and the advocates here today, and the MBTA. I think it was a robust conversation. Appreciate folks, again, being so prescriptive in their recommendations, and look forward to working with the chair and the MBTA.